The weekend preview for Anaheim 2 is here. Will Jett Lawrence and Eli Tomac bring the fight from San Diego up the road to Anaheim?
Eli Tomac wins in San Diego again! The legend has done it!
Can Juju Beaumer really take control of 250 Supercross?
The 18-year-old from Lake Havasu City, Arizona, Julian Beaumer! You're a race winner!
SMX Insider is next. Yeah, SMX Insider coming your way. The Jasons here, Thomas and Weigandt, and we get ready for round 3 SuperMotocross World Championship this weekend, Anaheim 2. And these are great times for this sport. The points are close, JT, but this is what the fans want. They got the Eli Tomac they wanted to see at least one more go-around, maybe just this year. But man, is he on fire right now, and this is great for the sport.
Yeah, there have been so many times when a rider comes back at this stage of his career, announces that it's going to be his final season, and you really just don't get their best stuff. They've just lost a little bit on their fastball. That's not what we're getting from Eli Tomac. And the most exciting thing is this multi-way fight for the championship between the younger riders, the current stars, and then the old guard, the Cooper Webbs, Eli Tomacs. All those guys are here to fight for this thing too. So it's early. We're 2 rounds in, but we're heading towards Anaheim 2 for round 3, and it looks like we're setting up for an all-time just dogfight all the way through 31 rounds.
We get so much to preview here for the weekend. Finger injuries have suddenly become a topic. We will have Dr. Joe McGinley on to talk about the prospects of riders coming back from injury quickly with that. We'll talk about the 250 class turned on its ear with Julian Beaumer taking over the championship lead. Chase Sexton, good and bad all in one night. We'll get it all on this next episode. And this week's big interview, we got big questions. We've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now. NXTbets, NXTbets.com. We have real sports betting with SuperMotocross for the first time ever in 2025. So we have Todd Ballard, the CMO and co-founder of NXTbets, with us. We have a million questions. We don't have a million hours to talk. But the main thing I get from fans is, who is setting these betting lines? How does this work? So give us, as brief as you can, an idea of where these odds come from and how people can then try to outwit them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what fans should know is we have a team of data scientists that have a lot of experience in the sports betting world. So we're taking historical data, live event data directly from SuperMotocross, running data through literally millions of simulations to come up with mathematical probabilities of the different types of odds that you see that you can engage with on the sports book. We have professional traders that then work with those odds and then send them to the sports books where they're managing their own risk. So depending on the volume that comes in, you'll oftentimes see an odd change from maybe when it was initially published to when the race starts. And that's because of the volume that's coming in and just the risk management that the sports books are doing on their end.
These dynamics are new for SuperMotocross. A lot of fans have probably partaken in other sports, but for their favorite sport, they now have this opportunity. And for the lines makers, for everybody involved on the receiving end of these bets, they're trying to predict where money's going to flow and things are going to happen. I'm most interested in what has surprised everyone on that side of the game as far as directionally or action-wise. What has been the biggest surprise thus far through 2 rounds?
Yeah, I think what isn't probably a big surprise to you guys is there's a lot of people that are betting with emotion and not necessarily their minds, right? And it makes it fun, but we see, it kind of falling where everybody would think it would fall based off just other storylines in the sport. But we're here to have fun, not to take it too seriously. It's we often use the Kentucky Derby example where, unless you had $2 on the Kentucky Derby, it'd just be some horses running around the track, and it makes it a lot more fun. So it's all about fun, engaging with the sport in a new way, and trying to balance your mind and your heart and coming up with what you think is going to be the best picks.
We know that behind the scenes, this was a very long and complicated process to make sure this was introduced to the sport without corrupting it in some way. So again, we don't have 100 hours here, but just explain some of the behind the scenes work that has to go to make sure this is going to work in a fair way.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And of course, you get the social warriors saying that, oh, that must mean it's rigged, and all these other accusations. And I think it is important to know that this is a highly regulated market. We only work with legal regulated sports books. There's a very strong compliance and integrity program that is behind this. All the riders, all the staff have been through thorough training to know what they can do and what they can't do. And it's watched very, very closely. So we are doing with the utmost integrity that can be done to ensure that this is something for the long term and not short term. And of course, we've seen other major sports where there have been issues. So we're doing everything we can to ensure those types of things don't happen. And so far, so good.
Yeah, I think you summed it up. We're trying to keep it fun. Just another element if you want to get a little more in depth when you follow these races. So Todd Ballard, thanks for joining us, and we'll see how this goes throughout the year. And the years, I guess plural is the real goal. But thanks for putting in the legwork to make this happen.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
30-second board. These are the hot topics in the sport. It's weird, JT, how injuries seem to come in waves, like the same injuries, but this one is really bizarre. Jo Shimoda, the hot start to the season, now over due to a finger injury, but not because of a crash. This is so weird. What happened here?
It's unfortunate. It is rare, as you mentioned, but for Jo Shimoda, just what a brutal way to start off the second round. The first time he's ever had the red plate. And it's, man, you don't want to place blame. I'm sure that the mechanic that errantly put that pit board out feels terrible and has ever since that moment. But what a blow to the series. What a blow to Jo Shimoda. And what a gutsy ride from Jo Shimoda, too. That has to be mentioned. To be able to find a way to get 7th with the way those fingers looked, that is one of the gutsiest rides I've ever seen, especially from a guy that, we haven't ever seen something like that from Shimoda. I think he showed a lot of heart.
Ty Masterpool also goes down with that crash. That's more a typical way that you get injured, and he did hurt his fingers as well. So we'll see what those guys are going to have long-term for the future. And the 250 class, the chaos there with Shimoda having his problems, Hayden Deegan not performing, at least results-wise, the way folks would have expected coming into the year. But this kid is a star is born. Juju Beaumer taking the test track speed we've heard about within the industry. He's got racetrack speed now.
He does, and I've really tried to lean into his comments, both coming out of SuperMotocross and then in our Feld Media Days in December, where he said, if I ever ride like I do during the week, you guys are going to see a very different Julian Beaumer. And you hear that a lot. People say all kinds of things that never come to fruition, but when you say something and then you do it, I think that needs to be brought back up repeatedly because it's so rare in this sport. And he is delivering on all of the things he's promised. And I'm always iffy on these kids because we've seen so many young guys come into the class, not make it happen, and kind of flame out. And then they're just kind of floundering for position, trying to find a ride. And then you see kids like Julian Beaumer who sees the opportunity and really make the most of it, and they look like they're destined for superstardom. So yeah, it's up to them. He's gotten his chance. And I would say even coming into this season, we were all kind of like, hey, you got to deliver this year. Kudos to him. He is making the most of this moment. And I think he's solidified himself in this 250 class moving forward.
Oh yeah. Once you get a win and that kind of speed under your belt, you're going to have a ride for years. Even if things start to go sideways, he's established himself. And in a similar way, I think the same thing is happening with Cole Davies. So it's funny to hear on the broadcast, you folks talk about how experienced Beaumer is compared to Davies, who's leading, because Beaumer is 18 in his second year. But Davies in his first Supercross year, and he was supposed to race SMX next this season. He has been lightning quick.
He has been, and he has taken dramatic strides from a year ago. That's probably the most impressive thing to me. As I watched him last year, I'm like, yeah, he's pretty good. But it wasn't any sort of domination where I'm like, he is so ready. And when they decided to move him up, when the powers that be, which they look brilliant at the moment at Monster Yamaha Star Racing, I was very skeptical because I thought it felt early, but clearly they saw more than we did, and they were right because he has been the real deal. And you start to look at where his trajectory could go from here because he looks the part already. He's 2 races in and he's already fighting at the front. So great job to everybody around. And he's one of the most unique personalities we've come across. When you talk to him, he just looks at things a little differently. You can just sense that. And he is quickly becoming a force to reckon with in this 250 class.
Yeah, I met him and his family a year ago at this race, Anaheim 2, and they didn't know if they would be being a full-time racer in America at all at that point. A year later, that's a guarantee. Now, the weight of expectations is wild, right? Because you see how well Davies is riding. The disappointing results from Deegan with only one podium in 2 races. It would almost seem like, wait, who's the better prospect here? But JT, I brought this up and you pushed back hard. Deegan is still the better guy.
Yeah, the only time that Davies has beaten Deegan was in that heat race in San Diego where Deegan crashed. And don't let that be a detractor from Cole Davies. He has been phenomenal, but Hayden Deegan, in my opinion, is still the guy. This has been 2 of the most disappointing weekends we've seen from him in a very long time, and his demeanor on the podium spoke volumes about that. There was a lot of humility. He didn't say a word to anyone until the camera came on, and that is not Hayden Deegan's personality at all. He's usually up there and very personable, talking to everybody, smiling. That wasn't him. So I think he's kind of having a moment where he's having introspection, like, I got to figure this out. I'm putting myself in bad position. So we'll see where it goes from here. But I don't want to hear that Cole Davies is a better prospect yet. It's way too early. And we've simply seen too much from Hayden Deegan over the last 2 years, I think, to get there quite yet.
Deegan could win this weekend and have the red plate 3 races in, and that'll be gone. So we'll see. As for Masterpool, we did mention this. So he jumps into Supercross because Levi Kitchen is out with illness. They throw him into the West. Fans were not happy about this, JT. They wanted Masterpool to start East so he could be at round 1. I guess the Masterpool fans thought because he needs all the points to win the title. I don't think Supercross Championship, including Ty himself, was on the mind of anyone within that camp. So I don't think that mattered. But we still saw the problem here. Masterpool and Supercross have not been a good mix, and San Diego didn't change that.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I didn't think he was going to come in and be immediate contender to win races or anything like that. We've never seen that from him in Supercross racing, period. On any bike, in any situation, he's never been that guy. So to think he would immediately vault himself into that was, I think, wishful thinking by many. The tough part here is now he's got this finger injury to contend with. What does that look like for his preparation towards the Pro Motocross portion of the SuperMotocross World Championship? That's going to be a factor. I don't think it'll be a big deal, but it's not ideal for Ty Masterpool. So I think this is almost like last year at Fox Raceway, where he gets thrust into a position last second. He wasn't thinking he was going to race the West. He comes out, he looks pretty good, but then he has this gigantic crash like he did at the opening round. He has a gigantic crash here in San Diego. And unfortunately, it's 2 opening rounds for him where it was a last second thing where he's kind of crashed himself out of contention.
Maybe we see Drew Adams coming in. The team has said they cannot sub Adams in until the rider is officially out with injury. Then he can inherit the mechanic, the bike, and all that. And if they had all the riders healthy and Adams was racing Supercross, they'd have 6 riders of the showdown races, and they cannot handle 6 bikes under 1/10. So we'll see how they handle the Masterpool Adams situation going forward. SMX medical update. We bring in the good doctor, Dr. Joe McGinley of the McGinley Clinic. Unfortunately, Avery Long, just 2 races into his professional Supercross career, went down hard. Saw that in the last chance qualifier, led to a red flag and a restart. And we know that you know Avery really well, working with him in his amateur days. So have you heard anything from Avery or his camp?
Yeah, that was a crazy crash. You know, I saw that on TV, and I reached out to his parents right away to check in to see how he's doing. Now, fortunately, all his tests came back negative, no broken bones, neck is good. He did get discharged from the hospital that night. So he's back home healing up at this point. So pretty happy about that. No major injuries from that crash.
Yeah, don't know if he'll be able to race this weekend or not, that we'll have to see. Oh, and his teammate, it was a really bad night for AEO Power Sports KTM there also, Joe.
Yeah, that was another crazy crash coming off the jump, and yeah, broken femur on that one. That's going to require surgery. Talon's going to be out for a bit on that one. But yeah, not a good night for the team. Fortunately, though, Avery, no major injuries. Talon obviously has that femur fracture. That's going to keep him out for a bit.
Well, another unfortunate injury, and this rider was able to actually compete, but I'm sure you saw Jo Shimoda's injury there. Taking pitboard to the fingers, had a couple of broken fingers, and he was able to compete, which was amazing. He gets out of there with a 7th place finish. But I think the focus now for everyone is, will he be able to continue this? Will he be able to race through these remaining West Coast rounds before he gets a break? And second to that, what does that look like? Is there a risk of long-term damage racing with broken fingers in whatever condition they may be in?
Yeah, that was just an unfortunate accident. I mean, just crazy to see how that all occurred. Joe's really fortunate that could have been a lot worse. His gloves really protected his hands well. If you looked at the images afterwards, there was a lot of bruising, but the skin wasn't cut open or anything too significantly. As far as him racing, I agree with you. That was impressive to see him out there and do so well, coming through and getting those points in the main event. So I'm sure they were talking about it after the race and speaking with their doctors on, do you try to go through these next 2 rounds, wait it out to the East Coast round and try to get this to recover or not? If he wasn't in the battle for the championship, this would be a no-brainer. You let this sit out and heal. I mean, that's just the way you would handle this. The consequences are, you can try to stabilize those fractures as much as possible, but these bones are broken. So when you're out there riding, I mean, this is not just trail riding. You're coming off big jumps and turns and against some of the fastest guys on the planet, and you're out there pushing hard. So those bones are going to be moving ever so slightly that entire time, no matter how well you try to stabilize it. And that could impede healing long term. So I'm sure that conversation's happening right now, the risk benefit of that. If he wasn't in the battle for the title, this would be a pretty straightforward recommendation.
A bit of a crisis mode over there for Honda and the Shimoda camp to try to see if he can just salvage points. It's going to be interesting to watch. And we'll have you back next week for more updates. Thanks, Dr. Joe.
Great. Thanks, guys.
We're going to resume 30 board now. So good and bad for Chase Sexton in these first 2 races. The good part is the speed that everyone was hoping he would have this year. He appears to have that. The bad is a couple of those other old problems that Chase Sexton used to have also rear their head at San Diego. So what do we think going into round 3 here, JT?
Well, the things that I wanted to see from Chase Sexton in 2025 were fix the starts. First and foremost, the first thing that's got to happen is he's got to get better starts. And second, I want to see the speed back in his game. We've seen that from him. So kudos on that. Unfortunately, the first lap in San Diego is one of the most poorly executed first laps that we've ever seen. I would say by anybody, let alone a former champion of this class. He almost got landed on. He made multiple mistakes. Then he ended up on the ground in the first lap. So he needs to clean all of that up. He did a great job of salvaging what could have been a disastrous night. Got back to 6th, still in the championship fight. He did a good job of making the most of it. But overall, through 2 rounds, I would give Chase Sexton an A. I had 2 very defined things I wanted to see, and I've seen both of them. Fastest qualifier, better starts. It's just maybe not execute that first lap that same way.
There's so much talk about Sexton speed, and we'll get to Jett Lawrence, Eli Tomac in a moment. In the end, Cooper Webb is 3rd at this round 2, but a distant 3rd. And I think it'd be easy for the fans to say, well, it looks like speed-wise, it's just going to be Sexton, Eli, and Jett for the title this year. I say, nah, man, if Cooper Webb, this is fine. This is totally fine, and you will be surprised if you start to count him out. I think he's in a perfect spot.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't have the wins, but you look at A1, he definitely had more time off in December than he wanted to. He had a crash that he really kept under wraps, but he got a 4th, battling almost past Jason Anderson for a podium at A1, comes into San Diego, gets the whole shot, weeds, I don't know, the first half of the race, maybe 8 minutes or so of the race, drops back, holds off Ken Roczen for 3rd. And this has been the game plan that he lined out. He said there will be nights where I'm probably not fast enough to win. And on those nights, I need to make sure that I get every point possible. And the most points possible for him on Saturday night seemed to be 3rd. And guess what place he got? 3rd. He's 4 points out of the championship after 2 rounds. So I would say this, count Cooper Webb out of this championship at your own peril. He may not be the fastest rider on the racetrack, but this is what Cooper Webb does. He stays in the fight all the way down the stretch, and he makes life incredibly difficult for everyone else competing against him.
What we are close to is a amazing clash of the Titans here. We got an all-timer in San Diego. We will not forget, probably ever, between Eli Tomac, this Eli Tomac, prime peak-looking Eli Tomac, better than 2024 Eli Tomac, against Jett Lawrence, who we already know is really great, and better, by the way, than he was at Anaheim 1. We hope to see more of these, but even if we only get it once, JT, This is huge for the sport. It wasn't a guarantee. Tomac could have retired. Nope. Instead, we got all-time battles between two titans.
Yeah, this is Ali Frazier, if maybe they were 10 years apart in age. You know, the two guys where it's like the, you know, unstoppable force against an immovable object. You just don't know what's going to happen. You just expect the world to explode because of these two things coming together. But this is the fight we all wanted. And if you ask Jett, which we have, and he's been so forthcoming with this, is who is the guy you want to go head-to-head with and see what happens? He has mentioned Eli Tomac multiple times.
That one, that was awesome. Gosh, he got me at the start, and then I was trying so hard just to get close enough to make a pass, but dude, he was ripping. Sadly, there's no second motor like in SMX, so he got me on that one, but no, he rode unreal.
And you could see the joy on Jett's face after the race. Even losing the race, he was genuinely happy about getting to race with Eli. And also, I'm sure there was some relief in the fact that he was back in the fight, moved forward, and looked much better than he was at A1. But this race absolutely delivered, and it's really the first time we have seen those two go at it, and we should all be so lucky to get more of that down the stretch.
The fans, it's unreal. So, true story, I was at the pre- and post-race show desk at Anaheim 1 as the main event started, just hanging out, waiting for the show to begin. Tomac gets in the lead on lap 1, and the crowd was going so nuts in that building that I was compelled to take my phone out. I just wanted a video to forever remember how loud the fans are for Eli Tomac in 2025. By the time I hit record, he was on the ground. I can only imagine what that main event felt like when he was doing well the whole time in San Diego. This is a perfect connection between rider, athlete, and fan base.
The story is old as time. Even the people who were on the fence about Eli seem to have come around now. You know, he has this gigantic fan base that everybody was cheering for their different guys, and there was always a core there for Eli, but it seems like everyone has come around on Eli Tomac. So when he gets in the lead, and I think we're going to see that at literally every racetrack, if you see him anywhere near the front, just maybe grab headphones or earplugs because the crowd is going to erupt, and he deserves this. He's won a race 11 years in a row. That is incredible. He is now stands alone as the only rider to ever do that. And that might be a record that stands the test of time. You know, we've talked about 72 wins from McGrath for however long. I don't know if anybody's getting to 11 years in a row with a win. That is an incredible length of time to be at that peak level to win a race. It's unbelievable. I don't think we could ever talk about that enough.
That's what makes this Tomac story so compelling to the fans. We've often had the veteran 30-something-year-old guy who's been around a while, and the fans like them probably to a disproportionate amount, maybe even more than the results justify. But in this case, you could make the argument that Tomac's been the best rider in the series so far, and he has the veteran crowd support as well. This is both the head and the heart, both working together. But we warn fans at home, if you're going to get involved with a little sports betting that we have this year with NXTbets, you have to think a little less heart and a little more with the head. And maybe Tomac's still the best choice anyway. But let's bring on the experts that can really break it down. NXTbets with James Stewart and our statistician, Clinton Fowler.
All right, James, let's talk betting. We got 2 rounds down. Chase Sexton won at Anaheim 1. Last weekend, we were treated to an incredible race between Eli Tomac and Jett Lawrence. Before we dive in, remember, folks, check the lines. They shift throughout the week. Right now, we got the favorites as Jett Lawrence at 162, a negative 162, and you got Eli Tomac at a negative 111. Pretty amazing, James.
I mean, pretty amazing. And honestly, I know it's a lot tighter this week, but I think they got him right just because I still feel like now Jett Lawrence got beat by Chase Sexton. Oh, man, don't want that one. Now Eli Tomac and the way Eli did it, don't want that one. And the way Eli rode at Anaheim, he was great. Even though Chase Sexton went down this weekend, he was great. So Jett Lawrence, don't want those guys to win. So going to Anaheim too, you just got to look at like he wants to bounce back. But I honestly think, Clinton, the way all those guys are riding, I would say Eli Tomac and Chase Sexton are riding better than Jett Lawrence. But because Jett Lawrence is Jett Lawrence, look him up. You don't Wikipedia. I don't got to explain anything. He's still your favorite because he's that good.
Yeah, he definitely is worth being the favorite. He's still got that speed. Now, the one variable we saw last weekend that we've got to think about this point in the season, we had a bunch of riders sick. Cooper Webb still podiumed, but man, he was out leading, could have won. Jason Anderson, Hunter Lawrence, same thing. James, this just happens this time of the year.
Sick or not, just those three, Jett Lawrence, Chase Sexton, and Eli, they're on a different level right now. Said going in Anaheim, those dudes look like they're on mid-season form. There's a lot to prove. So even though if they weren't sick, I think Cooper Webb would probably give a little bit deeper. But those three, they're just kind of on a different level right now, and he knows it.
Well, those top three, when the gate drops, I guess that start's going to tell us right away which one's the favorite for the weekend. Thanks for chatting, James.
Okay, now let's look at the track for Anaheim 2. JT, what do you see?
Yeah, so back to Anaheim, and we're going to get that split start again. It is a little bit different, but think about Anaheim 1 in 2022. That's kind of more similar to the way the start is, where it's got that tabletop tunnel in the middle, but a little bit more standard style. It doesn't have the kind of weird angles that Anaheim 1 did, although it's in the same venue. The one thing that I think stands out here are the back-to-back whoop sections. We got 10 whoops last week. That was a big talking point that everybody was kind of like, it changes the algebra a little bit for how you have to approach the whoops. But on a heart rate level and riders just trying to maintain their fitness and try to keep just a breathing in check, back-to-back whoop sections are very, very difficult. And the reason why is they hold their breath. That's a very under-talked about point, is when you're blitzing whoops, you hold your breath. When you have to do that 2 sections in a row, you get this heart rate spike that riders have to contend with, and they're going to be trying to manage that every single lap. And we don't get back-to-back whoops all that often, so it's just something to watch for, is how those riders manage that throughout the main event.
SMX Facts time. We bring Clinton Fowler and his statistics onto the show as always. Everyone's buzzing about Eli Tomac, and why wouldn't they? But I know you're going to give us something extra that we probably hadn't thought about, so give it to us with Eli.
Yeah, obviously an incredible win against Jett Lawrence and a great head-to-head battle. Seeing him win 53rd time, the 11th consecutive year, absolutely incredible. But the new piece here, the wrinkle that's really impressive, and we've talked about performance and longevity, the new piece is he's the 6th oldest rider to win in Supercross. He just passed Kevin Windham, who was 7th and 8th, by just a day to move into that slot. But the most impressive piece here, JT, a lot of these guys were really good. Obviously, they're winning. But Eli Tomac is now the oldest rider to ever hold the red plate and lead the series. He's not just winning and getting it as a one-off. He is one of the guys right now, JT.
Yeah, we've talked about that throughout the offseason and coming into the season, that he was adamant about being this guy again, and it wasn't going to be this swan song type season. It wasn't going to be, well, let's see how it goes. He's here to try to win this SMX World Championship. Full stop, end of story. And I think through 2 rounds, he has backed up those words.
Okay, that's one side of the age spectrum. What else are you looking at?
Yeah, now we've got the other side of it. In the 450s, obviously, we've seen the age getting older and older over the years. We've seen that in the 250s. But in San Diego, we saw something different. But let me ask a question. Do you guys know the last time we've seen 3 teenagers on a podium all together?
To me, that would seem common. Is it not? Is it not something we see in that class all the time? No?
Back in the 1990s, it was. But guys, it's been since 2011, nearly 15 years ago, when we saw Dean Wilson, Justin Barcia, and Blake Warden, all 19-year-old teenagers, on the podium. It's been a very long time. The shift has been getting older and older. But in San Diego, guys, while we saw Eli Tomac, the 6th oldest, win the premier class, in the small bike class, in the 250s, we saw the top 4 of the top 5 as teenagers. And it was just Jordan Smith, who's 28 years old, that kind of ruined that party with his second podium of the season. So just incredible to see the future talent that we've coming up. And JT, like, you just think about a kid like Hayden Deegan and Ryder DeFrancisco and Julian Beaumer, and this young talent that's come up through SMX Next program, is really impressive to see the emergence of them this year in the 250s.
It has been, and I wonder if that's going to be a 250 West specific dynamic, because when you look at the East, it is full of veterans, guys like Tom Vial and RJ Hampshire and now Levi Kitchen. You go down the list, there's a lot of veteran talent on the East. So these kids on the West are making the most of this opportunity, and good for them. This is what this 250 class is all about. Jump up, take advantage of the opportunity, and establish themselves for the next, 5 years as 250 contenders.
Thanks for the stats, Clinton.
Thanks, Weech.
Well, this is it. We are off to round 3 of SMX this weekend. Same schedule we had at San Diego. So that means 3 o'clock Eastern, race day live coverage begins. That's qualifying. And then the racing begins at 8:30 Eastern. You can watch it live on Peacock inside the United States or the SMX video pass out of it. Now, JT, I've long had a theory that round 3, 4, 5 are often the best of the year. The first 2 rounds, people are guessing on bike setup. Guys are nervous. They're not themselves. By round 3, that's gone. But we have not established a pecking order yet. Everyone still thinks they're in it. So I cannot wait for the race this weekend because everyone probably thinks, especially if you're Sexton, Tomac, and Jett, I'm the guy. They all think they're the guy right now.
Well, no one's really stepped up and said, hey, this is my championship. So yes, all of them probably should be thinking that they're still in this. And you think about guys like Cooper Webb, he's gone 4-3. Ken Roxon's gone 2-4. Those guys are clearly in the fight. Jason Anderson had an awful weekend at San Diego, so you know he's going to want to bounce back. But all of these guys can be in the mix. So parity is the name of the game. We talked about there were 5 prior champions coming in, and that doesn't even include a guy like Ken Roxon. So I'm here for it. This is why they dropped the gate. This is what makes the sport of super motocross so great, is that we have absolutely no idea who's going to win. And if you think you do, please go over to NXTbets and go ahead and make a wager on that, because I would have no idea. I think it's a fool's game to predict what's going to happen because all of these guys are riding too well right now.
Jett Lawrence been the favorite from that perspective for the first 2 races, and he hasn't won. So you never know what's going to happen in this game, but we'll probably get a little more info. We'll see everyone at Anaheim this weekend.